This is the dress I'm going to show you guys how to make in this video. This is also the same dress, just a different fabric. I got both of the fabrics from Joanne Fabrics. RIP Joanne. I'm using my OG pattern in this tutorial, but if you decide to get the pattern in the description, which is very affordable, all my patterns are affordable, this is what it looks like once you print it. In order to put it together, all I do is cut out the left side of the pattern first, where that line is. On the first page that prints out, there's a table showing how to tape the pages together, a pictogram showing what the pieces should look like once they're cut, the key for the sizing chart, and then the stars on the side of the paper, which help you line up the papers to tape them. So when you tape them together, it should make the complete star. So usually I start by taping the rows together. So I do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, etc. Then I'll start taping the whole thing together. For this part, like, you can cut off the top of the pages if you want. Like, sometimes I do that. Sometimes you can kind of just tell where you need to line it up to tape it. To save paper, this is a cut on fold pattern, so you're gonna cut it all the pieces on the fold. If you want to make it a not cut on fold pattern, you can always just like print it twice and then tape it together. Here's what the pieces look like once they're all cut out. This is a bodycon dress, but I used a rib knit fabric, so it's super stretchy. I used this padding for the top, which I feel like gave it a professional finish. The link to these cups are in the description. Since I'm using a rib knit, I want to make sure that the lines on the knit go up and down or vertical on my body. Because as you can see here, this fabric is a two-way stretch, so it's super stretchy one way, but it doesn't stretch so much pulling it the other way. The front and the back are actually the same pattern. The front is just a bit shorter. I folded my fabric so I could cut the front and the back out at the same time. And again, since this is a rib knit fabric, the lines on the knit should go up and down the dress. Here I'm just cutting the top of the front part. For the top piece, we need 2 pieces. It's the same pattern, so it doesn't matter if you flip it or not. I realized while I was cutting this, I made this way too big, but it is already edited on the pattern in my description. So here's what my pattern pieces are looking like so far. I have the front and the back of the dress, plus the 2 pieces for the top. Now I'm going to take the main body pieces and put them right sides together. So the tops won't align because the front is shorter, but the bottom should align. Now I'm going to add clips down the sides of the dress. I don't want to sew all the way to the top of the dress. I do want to sew all the way to the bottom though. You'll see why later. So here I'm going to make a mark just about 3 inches down from the top, so that way I don't go past this mark while I'm sewing. So here's a closer view of that mark. I put it on both sides so I know not to go past it. Before I start sewing any project, I always take a piece of scrap fabric and test out the settings on my serger to make sure it's good before I sew the actual project. So here we go to start the dress. As you can see, I did not start at the very top. I started where I made that blue line right there. But I am going to sew all the way down to the very bottom of the dress on both sides. And can we please take a moment to appreciate my hand tattoo here, because I just feel like it looks so cute. Here's what that stitch looked like, and then I did the other side. So on the other side, I decided to start from the bottom and work my way up versus the other side I did from top to bottom. But honestly, it does not matter which side you start on, the top or the bottom or whatever. Here's what that top flap looked like. And now we're going to take one of the top pieces and fold it in half, then clip it together. On this piece, I'm also going to make a mark about an inch from the smaller side. And I'm not going to sew past this mark. So I'm going to sew here and here, but not past where I marked. I like to use this elastic for the top, but it is optional. The link for it is in my description, and I just feel like it makes the top fit better overall. So I just put the elastic right on top of where I'm sewing. So I sewed one side, stopped where the marker was, flipped it, and then I'm doing the other side. I started where the marker is and finished at the end. Since you can't backstitch on a serger, I want to make sure that this part is secure and doesn't unravel, so I'm going to my sewing machine and just going over that end of that stitch with a straight stitch, like just forward and back a couple times to really secure it. And that way I don't have to worry about that stitch ever coming undone. Now we can take the piece that we just sewed and turn it right side out. We're going to take our other piece and put it inside of this one, like pull it through. So I'm taking my strap turner, putting it through the opening, and then pulling the other piece through. Here I'm just making sure that both sides are nice and even and that it is not rolled or like twisted inside. Once that's good, I'm going to clip the sides together starting at the corners. I can't clip it all the way to the ends, but I'm going to try to get as close to that knot as I can. You'll know you have it right if it looks like this, and then when you flip it right side out, it looks like this, like a cute little bantu top. So here I'm just going to flip it back inside out so that way we can sew along the edge, and we're going to stop there. It's going to be a little hard to sew this part, so we're just going to get as close to there as we can. I'm adding elastic here as well. Since I can't get all the way to the knot, I'm just going to sew as close as I can to there, and then I'll finish that section with a straight stitch on my regular sewing machine so that way I can get nice and close to it. So that's what I'm doing here with my sewing machine, just sewing that end so it's secure and close to that knot. So once that's sewn, I just open it up and this is what it looks like. Even though the front and the back look the same, I found which side I want to be my back, and then I just put X's on there. So we need to cut a hole like this, so that way we have a space to put the removable cups. So here I'm just gonna cut like a U, like a upside down U type shape. And I made it, I would say probably like an inch into the top. This is optional and you can always just make a little slit once you're done sewing it, but the cups are definitely a nice addition. Next, I'm going to do the ruching part on the cups. This is also optional, but again, it's a very nice touch to the dress. So on my sewing machine, I'm going to put the length up all the way to a 4, and then I'm going to make sure that this isn't rolled because I want the front nice like that. I don't want fabric from the back sticking out in the front. Make sure that you leave these threads long and that you do not backstitch. So I'm just going to sew all the way down with the long stitch. I just did one stitch, but if you find your threads breaking while trying to ruche it, you can always do 2 parallel stitches. I also did the same thing to the other side. So here I'm just taking one of the threads and just kind of slightly pulling it to give it that ruched effect. So you're gonna ruche it until it's about 4.5 inches. If you're doing a bigger size, maybe about 5 inches. Next, we need to hem the top of the front of the dress. Here I'm adding elastic and pulling it slightly, that way it's a nice snug fit in the front. Honestly, I probably would have did this at the first step, but I forgot. And next, I'm just going to fold it over and hem it with my cover stitch machine. If you don't have a cover stitch machine, you could just do a straight stitch, but pull the fabric as you sew it, or you could do a zigzag. So next it's time to add the bandeau part to the dress. So I'm going to put right sides together, making sure that opening is up. And I don't want to put it all the way to the top edge. I'm putting it about like an inch or a half inch from the top of the dress because we're going to have to hem it later. So the way this gets layered is the back panel, then the bandeau top, and then that front panel we're going to lay over top of the two. So the bandeau is kind of like smushed in between, at least the bottom part is. And here's a more close-up look of that process. I'm going to do this to both sides. Now I'm going to sew these sides. So I'm going to do it with a straight stitch first on my sewing machine. I almost called it a zigzag machine. But I want to make sure that it's good before I sew it on the serger. Since it all looks good, I can go ahead and sew it on my serger. So here I'm just going down both sides with the serger. Here I'm just checking to make sure that there's no holes. All that's left to do now is to hem the top and the bottom of the dress. For the top, first I'm going to add some elastic and then just fold over the edge and sew it down with a cover stitch. So here I'm just adding my elastic with my serger, and I'm also giving it a slight pull as I sew it, so that way it fits nice and snug at the top. Especially with this being a strapless dress, you want the top to fit a bit snug. Now that the elastic is added, I can go ahead and fold over the edge and sew it down with my cover stitch. And like I said before, you can just do a straight stitch or a zigzag. If you don't have a cover stitch, if you do a straight stitch, make sure you pull it as you sew. Here I'm just snipping the threads. The last step is to hem the bottom. I'm going to add elastic around the bottom first, otherwise, if I don't, when I go to walk, the seam will pop. So I'm going to go ahead and add the elastic with my serger, and I give the elastic a slight pull as I sew it. Now that the elastic is added, I'm going to go ahead and fold over the edge and sew it down with my cover stitch. If you don't have a cover stitch, you can use your regular sewing machine, and I recommend doing a zigzag stitch. I'm just going to finish it off by adding in these padded cups to give the top more structure. Here's another optional thing, but if you want the bottom of the cup to be sewn to the dress so that way you don't have under boob, you can. I just kind of pinned it, made sure it was even, and then sew both sides with a straight stitch. So this one, the bottom is not sewn, but on the other floral one, it is sewn at the bottom. This dress is so cute though, and it's so comfy. It's perfect for spring. And like I said in the previous video, so this version, I have it sewn right here. As always, thanks for watching, and if you have any questions, just comment them down below. You can always follow me on Instagram at Devalishangel for more content.